On today's episode, we'll talk about refusing to take no for an answer, orchestrating 2,500 cars with an AM radio, sneakers, Field of Dreams, and of course, telling James Earl Jones that the afterlife tickles. Just a little bit of business before we start. There may be a curse word here or there in this episode, so please listen responsibly. As always, our website, theop.io, is up and chock full of tips, tricks, and gooey operator goodness. Make sure to check out The Breakdown, where the best operators in the biz explain shots they have done, The Musings, where we discuss everything from quick tips to larger concepts of storytelling, the answers, the images, and so much more. This episode is brought to you by the Folex Max. So you want to practice your handheld, Steadicam, or even on the wheels, but you don't have a full-size camera to use? Well, fear not, the Folex Max is here. It allows you to attach your DSLR or other lightweight camera and distribute that weight in a multitude of ways. Now you can practice with a camera cage that feels the same as just about any size professional camera out there. For more information, check out folexmax.com. And as an added bonus to listeners, mention this podcast and you'll receive $100 off on your order. That's FAUXLEXMAX.com. Finally, if you enjoy this podcast, please follow us, write a review, share us with your parents, and talk us up around the water cooler with your friends. So grab a beverage, sit back, and enjoy the op. Thanks for listening.
Lock it up, nice and quiet, and let's roll.
Victor 30 Echo, take 2.
Hey, Mark. Hey, Mark.
And camera set. And action.
Hello and welcome back to the Op Podcast, the podcast where we talk about operating and the art of visual storytelling. I'm Dave Comides, your host, and I know I say I'm excited a lot of times because I am excited a lot of times when I talk to people, but I'm really, really, really excited because anybody who has ever listened to a number of these podcasts knows that there's one movie that I tend to bring up quite often because it bothers me that not enough people have seen it, and I think it's one of the best movies ever made, Sneakers. And today I have the writer and director of Sneakers, Mr. Phil Alden Robinson, who is an incredible director and writer and producer and storyteller. And I'm very, very excited about that. Some of the things that he has directed anyway. Field of Dreams, Sneakers, Sum of All Fears, Freedom Song, Band of Brothers, The Angriest Man in Brooklyn, George Burns' Half Hour Comedy Hour, which I have to ask him about. A number of awards, I'm just going to put off a few of them. DGA nominee for Field of Dreams, Emmys 2009 nominee for writing for the 81st Annual Academy Awards, which I thought was interesting, and a 2002 winner for directing Band of Brothers, WGA winner for Freedom Song and nominee for Field of Dreams. He has 12 nominations and 11 wins total, and is honestly, I think, one of the most underrated directors and one of my favorite directors. So I'm just really excited to talk to him. And before I say anything else, a thank you to John Lindley for reaching out to him because they've worked together for a while. Phil, thank you for being here.
Dave, it's a real pleasure. I'm a fan of the podcast.
Well, thank you. It's truly an honor to meet you. I mean, if you listen to all of the podcasts, Sneakers comes up more than any other movie. And I have turned so many people into this movie and they all go, why haven't I seen this movie? Yeah, big fan of a lot of your work. So it's really great to meet you. So tell me, how'd you get into the film industry? What's your story?
I was a political science major in college and I wanted to be a journalist. And I worked at a local radio TV station in upstate New York, did a documentary, got very enthusiastic about that as a career path. It was the first year of the draft lottery. It was 1970, I think, 69 or 70. Mm-hmm. And I had what I thought was a low draft number, low enough to get drafted, which I didn't want to have happen. So using the contacts I had in the news, there was a local congressman who was very high up in the Armed Services Committee, and I contacted him. He got me an appointment as a motion picture television production officer in the Air Force.
Wow.
And that's how I avoided the draft. I was sent to San Bernardino, California, where they had a big production facility, and I made training films for the Air Force for 2 years, 9 months, 14 days, 6 hours, and 23 minutes.
Not that you were counting.
Not that I was counting, but during which time I was off that track that I was on, the broadcast journalism track, which is what I wanted to do. But I found myself in California. I've been making these little films, and I thought, well, I'll just keep doing that. And I moved into LA, rented a little apartment and started freelancing in industrials and educationals and.
Wow! When you say making, you were directing, and what were you doing for them?
In the service? I was writing and directing and producing training films. It's a lot of it was sort of documentation of what was going on, but some of it was actually scripted things. It wasn't a lot of very creative stuff, but it was stuff.
Yeah.
And when I got to LA, I thought, well, I'll just keep doing this and see what happens. And I managed to get hired on these little industrial films, and they were boring and they weren't very challenging, but it was, it was making enough money to pay the rent. And then one day, this is in 1977, I got hired to do a series of films for a company called Churchill. It was a wonderful educational film company. A lot of very good people went through there. And these were going to be little playlets. They're going to be shot, like little comedies with single camera and actors and whatnot and standard coverage. I'd never done any of that.
Okay.
And they hired a cinematographer named Eric Saarinen, who wound up being very, very, very important and influential in my life because I really learned the craft starting with Eric. I remember on the first day of the first shoot, he had said to me, "I want to shoot available light." And I said, Great. What does that mean? He said, "No lights, just whatever we can." So we needed to stage scenes near windows and things. I said, all right, because he wanted to experiment. He'd already been a very experienced guy and he wanted to experiment. First morning, he said, "Can we do the master by the window? There's two people talking to each other. Can we sit them by the window?" I said, "Sure." So we do the master, and then when we do the close-up, I notice him telling the script supervisor, it was this lens, it was this high off the ground, it was this distance to the subject. And when we finish that close-up and move to the matching close-up, she repeats it back to him. And I say to myself, oh, that's how you match close-ups. Okay, I get that. And I just, every day I learned things like that. Great. I learned about not crossing the line and, screen direction. And I was too embarrassed to admit to everybody that I didn't know what I was doing. So I just watched and listened very carefully and just started picking up as much as I could. Eric became a great friend and a great mentor. He had done a lot of work. He had been a very highly esteemed documentary cameraman at that time.
Oh, wow.
In fact, the film at Altamont, he got the shot of the guy being stabbed. He was on the stage with the Stones, got that shot. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He had a lot of stories like that. He had done features. He had done big documentaries. I learned a ton from him. And we just started to experiment with stuff. We started trying new things in every little film we did. And it was glorious fun. And I just learned a ton. And I remember on that first film, he was the operator. It was a very low budget thing. So he was the DP and the operator. And one Monday morning, he said to me, "Hey, do me a favor. Before we shoot every scene, just put your eye to the eyepiece and check my focus." And I said, "Why?" He said, "I met this girl on Friday and we did a lot of mushrooms this weekend and they haven't worn off."
At least he was honest with you. And
Totally.
How was his focus? Did he do okay?
His focus was pretty good, but every once in a while I'd just say to him, "Mushroom," and he'd go back and adjust.
That's fantastic. I was going to ask you, what were these? What was the market for these? Were these for television or were these for? Where
No,
did
they
these
were
go?
for little companies. This company, Churchill Films, distributed to schools.
Oh, to schools.
And there were a bunch of companies like that did that. And the crews on these films were wonderful because they came out of two different places. One, half of the crew were all people who'd worked in Corman films, as Eric had. The other half was sort of the AFI crowd. They worked on David Lynch films and Cassavetes films. So you had this great mix of very experienced people who really knew a lot of different cool stuff. And I found if I just kept my mind open and my mouth shut, I could learn a lot.
Wow. So how long did you do these, or how many of these did you do?
Oh, countless. I did them for about 5 or 6 years.
Oh, wow.
Thinking all the while that somebody in Hollywood would see these little films and say, "Hey, you there, you're really good. Why don't you come work with us?" And it took about 5 years for me to realize, well, that's never going to happen. They're never going to happen. So I just had to stop and start over.
Yeah, but you learned all that time. It's funny you say about the people coming out of Corman and the people coming out of AFI, and all I can think of is there's two groups of people, and one is saying, well, these are the ideas that we have, and the other is saying, well, this is how you're actually going to get that done. And it's sort of it must have been an interesting meld of those two groups
Absolutely.
of people. Yeah.
I remember one of the guys who had worked on one of the Corman films said we would put a set together, for Johnson County Jail, and at lunchtime, Roger would come in with another crew. They'd move a plant, and they'd do a scene for Jackson County Prison. There was a lot of that stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I did some stuff down there, and I remember my thing was I would go in as a Steadicam operator for Carnosaur 2 or something like that, and I'd do a shot for them, and then they go down the hall and turn right. There's a spaceship. You go in there and tell so and so you're there to do a shot, and I do some shot for that. And I remember my thing was I didn't get paid anymore, but my thing was I'm getting 2 credits. This is great. This is amazing.
And 2 groups of people who now know your name.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it was fantastic. That place was kind of a death trap, but that was another issue. But so where'd you go from there? What did that lead to?
Eric had an agent who saw one of these little films and wanted to represent me. Mm-hmm. And he said to me, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I guess I want to make movies." I hadn't really planned a career, and he said, "Okay. What do you feel about television, network television?" I said, "Okay." And he said, "Look, it might take a year or 2 to get you your first job, but if you're willing to put in the time, I am too. What you need to do is you need to watch a lot of network TV, which I hadn't been doing. And you need to figure out what works on certain shows and come up with some stories. And I'll get you in meetings and you can pitch these stories." And a friend of his who was a very experienced writer said, I'm suggesting you think of Trapper John, MD. This was a CBS series. Mm-hmm. It was a spinoff of MASH. It was a Sunday night show, 1-hour drama. And a friend and I sat down and we watched a whole bunch of these shows and we came up with a half dozen story ideas. And this is a real story of perseverance now. Peter, the agent, got us a meeting with the Trapper John producers. And we went in and we pitched. We had 6 stories worked out, every beat of these stories.
Wow.
Took us probably at least an hour to get through these things. And each one they would go, "Oh, that's good, but we did that last year. Oh, that's good, but we're doing that next year. The network doesn't want us to do that." They turned down all 6 of these stories. And they said, "But you know what? We like you. Come back with some more ideas. We're buying." So we came up with 6 more stories fully worked out. Because Peter, the agent, had said to me, and this is great advice, let them know you will not take no for an answer. Yep. So we went back in, loaded for bear. We pitched our little hearts out, and they picked one. They said, "We love this. This is a great story." And it was a Friday afternoon. That weekend is a blur to me. It was a big party weekend. And on Monday morning, the Trapper John producer called and said, "I'm so sorry, but the network hates this story and they won't let us buy it."
Oh, God.
And I said, I took a few years off my life this weekend. Can you help a brother out here? And he said, "Don't worry, we're going to get you an assignment. Come back. You don't have to work them out in full detail. Just come back with 1-line ideas and we'll help you put it together." So we came back with 25 more 1-line ideas.
Wow. Okay.
Again, it was like, just let them know you will not take no for an answer.
Yep.
And they said, "Okay, here's your A story. Here's your B story." We wrote the episode. They loved it. And they said, this was in 1980. And they said, "Great, write another one for us." "Oh, wait, SAG just went on strike."
Oh.
And so I had to go back to educationals and industrials for like 4 or 5 months. Beginning of the following year, Trapper John called and they said, "We're buying, come back with them." We pitched a story. They loved it. We wrote it. They said, "This is great. Come on staff, be staff writers." "Oh, wait, the Writers Guild just went on strike."
Oh.
And so for 6 months, I had to go back to the minor leagues, which is what it felt like to me. Yeah, and I really felt like the universe was saying, "Are you sure you want to do this for a living? Why don't you take a hint and just pack up your bags and leave?"
Most people probably would have, right?
But I was just, it was drilled into me. Don't give up.
Don't give up. Yeah.
So we got to write the second episode. And at this point I had pitched a low budget idea for a feature to Avco Embassy. And they bought it, and I got to write my first feature, which they didn't make, but then that got me the next one, which got me the next one. From that point on, each script got the next job.
Okay. Yeah. So you're sort of an established writer at this point.
At that point, I'm making my bones as a screenwriter, right?
Yeah. Wow. What was that first one? What was that first feature about? Was it a genre picture?
It was a murder. It was like a low budget murder story.
Okay. And it was they bought it but shelved it, or
no? They put it in turnaround.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Someone else eventually made it, but they rewrote it and changed a lot. And so I
sure. Yeah. Did you at this point? What was it? I guess I'm going to be a writer, or was there still a desire to be a director? Or
I wanted to direct. I didn't quite know how I was going to parlay that, but I figured I'll keep writing this stuff for a while and see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
And after a couple of years, I had 2 movies in production at the same time. One of which was a picture called All of Me that Carl Reiner directed with Steve Martin and Lily Tomlin.
That's a fantastic movie. Wait, you wrote All of Me? I didn't realize that somehow.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I was treated so well. Carl basically said to me, you just stand next to me from the first day of prep through the last day of post. You just stand here and you help out as you can.
Wow.
At the same time, another script I'd written called Rhinestone was being made, in which Sylvester Stallone rewrote every word of it. So I was simultaneously being treated, really well on one project and just being discarded on the other.
Well, look, there's no better way to learn how Hollywood is than that, and at the same time, right?
Absolutely. And there was actually a moment on Rhinestone. They called me in to see if I could rewrite some of the rewrite, which was impossible.
Oh.
And I said to the head of the studio, "This picture is going to suck." And he pointed a finger at me and he said, "Welcome to Hollywood." And I thought, oh, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, but thankfully you were having the All of Me
Yes.
experience. So
Yes.
Wait, you wrote the line Edwina Beck and Bowl?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, granted, part of it is how he's delivering it, but it's a fantastic line. And that whole movie was fantastic. Because what a joy!
It was a joy to be on that set because everybody was wonderful. They were in it for the right reasons. They were doing really interesting work, and I got to have a front row seat to watch it put together.
So you had a taste of what it can be like, at least.
Yes, and I realized I was lucky. We had a director in Carl Reiner who wanted to be collaborative, wanted my participation. We had actors who wanted me to be there and involved me in the discussions. It wouldn't always be that way. So I decided the next thing I write, I really want to direct. Because I can't play roulette with this anymore and have something I care about, a script that I care about, in the hands of someone who's going to treat it badly.
Yeah.
So I told my agent, same agent, next thing we do, I got to direct. And he said, well, we just got an offer from, I think it was Lorimar. They have a project called The Woo Woo Kid. And I said, is it to write and direct? He said, no, it's just to write. I said, pass. And he called me the next day and he says, wow, they just upped the offer. They were offering more money. I said, well, I don't want to, if I can't direct it, I'm not doing it. They increased the offer again. For like 3 days in a row, they kept offering more money.
Wow.
And I said to Peter, I don't want to do it. And he said, look, you're now being rude. Read the article. It's based on a magazine article. Read the article, then tell him you're not interested in the article. I said, fine.
Okay.
So he sent me the article. I got about halfway through it, and I called him and said, you got to get me this job. This is such a cool story. And directing was not attached. I finished the script. I was really proud of it. They really liked it. They wanted to make the movie. They offered it to every director they could find. It was turned down by everybody. And I kept saying, me, I'll direct it. And finally, I think just out of desperation, they let me direct it.
Wow! Oh,
and that became In the Mood, where they changed the title.
Oh, that became In the Mood. Okay,
right.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was that experience like? Had you learned enough from the things that you had done for the 5-6 years in the smaller movie and those the Churchill things?
I learned enough to fake it. I mean, I knew that I was deeply underqualified to direct a Hollywood movie, and I had to be, after All of Me. Steve Martin was producing a television show, and he got me 2 episodes. That was the George Burns Comedy Week, they call it, and I directed 2 episodes of that, and which was a lovely experience. And learned more little tricks. Like we were shooting a campfire scene one night, and I did one side. I was about to turn everything around, and the DP said, no, just have the people switch positions. It's a campfire. It's nighttime.
Welcome to TV also.
Exactly. There's a lot of that.
I have to ask, was George Burns involved in the George Burns Comedy Hour?
Yeah, he would do the little intro at the beginning of each episode. He would come on camera, smoke it. He was delightful. Yeah. We shot those, for some reason, we shot those with the big, an old Mitchell. And it had like number 2 on it. It was like from the 30s or 40s. It was a real old Mitchell.
Wow.
And there's George Burns, who was, 90 years old at the time. It was lovely. And he knew his lines. He never needed, any special handling. You'd show him the mark. He would look in the camera, puff on the cigar at the right moments. He was a total pro.
That's so exciting to hear. That's so wonderful to hear. That warms my heart. So basically, like you had enough to fake it till you make it. It sounds like.
Yeah, I knew what questions to ask, and I also knew I really needed a DP who knew what he was doing. And I interviewed a bunch of very good cameramen, and that's when I met John Lundley.
Did he just was a name that came through the door or something, or?
He was a name that came through the door. He had done a couple of films that I really liked. I'm blanking now. And then there's a film he shot in Europe that I really thought was terrific. We met. I liked what he was about. I liked what he had to say.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is someone I can learn a lot from, and that I can also rely on to kind of get me through it, because I really didn't know what I was doing. I knew what I was doing as a writer. I felt confident in that. But I remember the very interesting pre-production is where you kind of put the movie together, and you begin as a director. You begin with the production designer. That's the first person that you kind of marry, and you spend every waking hour with them. You're looking at sets. You're talking about the sets. You're going to locations. You're talking about the look of the film, the colors and whatnot. And then at a certain point, for budgetary reasons, the DP is not on that early. They bring him on maybe a month early instead of 3 months early. When the DP comes on, you see the eyes of the production designer just get sad, because he knows that this marriage is over and that I'm moving on to my second marriage.
Yes, that's very well put.
And you're locked at the hip with the DP, and you spend all your time, and every day in pre-production, there's a schedule. Every minute you've got location scouts, you've got casting sessions, you've got budget meetings. What there isn't on that schedule, there's 2 things that are never on that schedule. One is director gets to eat, and the other is director thinks. There's no time in pre-production for the director to sit and think. So John, who was so generous, he said, well, let's get together on weekends, just you and me. And actually we involved the first AD, I think. And we get together on weekends and go through the script scene by scene and talk about how you want to shoot the scene.
That sounds
the
like
stuff
John.
That's the most important stuff in the movie, and there's no time for it in prep. And we figured it out. We figured a lot of stuff out about a style and when we'd go handheld, when not, how to shoot certain scenes, what kind of feel we want in certain scenes. And that was incredibly valuable. And I just tried to keep him from knowing how little I knew. And I learned a ton. And he has always had a great, great crew.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
do you remember what some of the biggest learning curves were for you on that film?
One of them was managing the workload. How do you know what you can do in a day and what you can't do in a day? And the line producer did something sneaky. On the first day, he overloaded the first day. He told me later, he said, I wanted to see how much you could do. I wanted to see how you do under a ton of pressure on the first day.
So you're never going to make the day.
Never going to make the day. And we did. We worked incredibly hard and fast, and we made that day. And at the end of the day, I was very dissatisfied because I thought I'd given short shrift to some stuff. And I said to John, please tell your guys, I'm never going to push them this hard again. And he said, no. They love working that hard. As long as you're being efficient, they'll work that hard every day of the shoot. But if you start being inefficient, you'll lose them. And I said, well, tell me, what does that mean, being inefficient? He said, if you turn the room around and then turn it around again, if you start picking up shots that you forgot about, that makes them redo setups, you'll lose them. He said they love working that hard and that fast.
That's great. And but you do now recognize that John was grooming you the whole time, right? In a good way, in a very good way. But
Absolutely.
He probably looked at you. I guarantee I know John. He probably looked at you and said, I really like this guy. He's smart. There's things he doesn't know, so I'm going to turn him into the director that he needs to be, that I think should be out there. And
there's no question. I think I learned most of what I know about directing from Eric Saarinen and John Lindley.
Doesn't surprise me at all. Yeah.
And John, I actually found that if the actors were doing something I wasn't sure of, when we finished a take, I'd look over at John and he'd give me a little look to give me sort of his thumbs up or thumbs down.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, he'd just whisper to me something like, maybe she should turn later, or some little grace note that would make a difference in the scene. He was also operating on that movie.
Oh, he was? Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to ask. Yeah. I'll tell you, and you'll probably appreciate this and understand this. Granted, I operate for him, so there's a different sort of hierarchy than there is with working with the director. But I always joke that he's never asked me a question. He tells me things he wants me to know, but his voice goes up at the end. So he'll come in and he'll go, do you think we should be on a tighter lens? And he's not really, he's telling me we should be on a tighter lens, but it's done in a lovely way. And he's almost always right, which is the thing that's both frustrating and wonderful.
Enraging. He is almost always right. There was one day on Field of Dreams where it was a shot of the ball field at night from inside the house, and he had every light he could on the field. And when we looked at dailies the next night, you couldn't see the field. I've never seen him so upset with himself.
Yeah,
he was despondent, just despondent. He apologized. He said, "I'm so sorry." I said, "No, it's all right. We tried something and it didn't work. We'll do it again."
Yeah,
he was really, really. He set such a high bar for himself and for everyone around him. Yep.
And I've seen people fall below that bar, and it's it's tough. But so did you come out of this going? I mean, were there points during this where you're thinking, I can't do this, or was it just I'm going to get through this no matter what? Because you were saying you have the tenacity. I mean, you're gonna do it, and this is it.
I was too dumb on that movie to really know what I was feeling or how I was doing. I was just hanging on for dear life, and it was sort of fun. We got through, we had a lot of sets, a lot of speaking parts. It was a very low budget. We did fine. At the end, the last day, I think, Robert Harmon, who's a friend of mine, who's a very good director, was on the set to visit. And he said, "How's it going?" I said, I'm never quite getting what I had in my head on film. And he said, "You never do." He said, "Pre-production is when you make the film. In production, all that happens is you see your vision whittled away. And in post, you get to put it back together."
That's great, man. And so, that's so right on the nose too. Absolutely. Wow. That's really good. I don't know if that's advice, but whatever that is, that's a good thing to hear.
It was very reassuring to me.
Sure.
And in fact, it's true. It's like you do see your vision whittled away to some extent. There's certain wonderful things that happen, great accidents that happen that enhance what you were trying to do.
Absolutely.
But in post, you can fix almost anything.
Yeah.
And it took me a few pictures to learn that.
That's great, though. Oh, that's phenomenal advice. Working with actors on that first movie, I mean, was what you had learned in working in these smaller things, did that set you up well enough, or was that a hurdle?
I think it did. I feel like that's something that, because as a writer, I think about characters so deeply, I didn't feel out of my element talking to the actors about who they are and what their intention is in a scene, because I had already thought of that as a writer.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I really did feel technically that I was just a real beginner. And then someone pointed out to me that Wells, apparently, after Citizen Kane, which was his first movie, said that Greg Toland, his DP, had taken him aside for a weekend before they shot and taught him everything he needed to know. And Wells would say, it just takes a weekend to learn what you need to know technically to direct a film. And it's true. If you surround yourself with very good people, I couldn't light a set. I know what I would like it to look like and what effects I'm trying to get. I know when it looks good. And if you can communicate with your cinematographer and your gaffer, and it's not a problem.
Yeah.
You know, I couldn't load a camera.
Mm-hmm. Most people
Fortunately,
can't
there are
now,
people.
actually.
No, that's true. That's a lost art.
Yeah, there's still some people out there, but yeah, no, but I know what you mean. But since we're talking about your first big film, and you clearly not really, well, I mean, you didn't know if you were ready for it until you were into the film and whatever. How do you go into that and not let your nerves get the best of you? How do you push all that doubt away and all that fear away that must exist when all that's
a
riding
great
on
question. I don't think I did push it away.
Oh.
I actually think I was feeling a lot of fear and doubt, but there was so much to do. And also, my first film, I'm excited. I'm directing a Hollywood movie. I was excited, and I loved the people that were around me. I felt a lot of fear and doubt, more so on the next film, even. But on the first one, I think I was too dumb to know how much trouble I was really in. You know,
that's a blessing. Yeah,
yeah. And I just kind of I had people who helped me through it. Very good team, and we used almost all of them on the next film. We kept the same crew together. But I remember there was in post production. I loved editing because every day in the editing room, the film gets better.
Sure.
You know, and that shot that wasn't perfect, well, it never gets worse. And the sun and the take that you like, the sun never goes behind a cloud in the middle of that take now.
I love this. Oh, and this is so fantastic. Yeah.
And the actor never forgets his line in this take that you've just chosen. And every day you make a little trim here, you move a shot around, and it gets better and better every day. And it was a joy. And on the last day, we had a preview that went very well. I had 3 notes. And I went to the editing room, and I told the editor these 3 notes, and he made these little changes. And he played it for me, and I looked at it, and I said, "I'm sorry, could you play that again?" And he plays the scene again, and I said, "I'm sorry, can you play it one more time?" And he plays it again. I said, "I don't know what's happening. I can't see it." And he said, "That's because you're done." He said, "Trust me, it works. Go home. You're done."
That's a great lesson. Wow, that's really that's powerful.
I was looking at the moviola. I couldn't see the change. It was just sensory overload. I shut down.
Yeah. Oh, but that's wise words right there. Well, you know, what you were saying about that earlier made me think of, and I just said this to a director the other day, but I say this to people all the time is, you know, we're on a feature right now. There was a shot that he really wanted that we just didn't have time to get. And so I offered an alternative, which was fine, but he was really frustrated about it. And I said to him, you know, nobody's ever going to see the shot you wanted and the shot you got and say, why didn't they use the shot? The shot we got tells the story. It moves it along. And sometimes you got to let go of those things, right? That's the hardest thing to do.
Exactly right. It is the hardest thing to do. And the next film, Field of Dreams, that's the story of that for me, because I was every day. Now I feel like, okay, I'm an experienced Hollywood director. I've made a movie. I should be able to do amazing things on this one. And there wasn't a scene in that film that came out the way I had it in my head. And every night at dailies, I'd go home wanting to just open my veins. I just thought, oh my God, I'm completely blowing this.
Wow.
Yeah, I had a
amazing.
very impressionistic or expressionistic idea in my head. And it turns out I didn't have the chops to pull that off. And so the film is shot very simply.
But it's shot beautifully. I mean, that movie's. I could go on for I will go on for a long time about that movie. But do you think that the movie that you had in your head all those years ago that you couldn't make is a better movie than what you made?
No, what I learned is it wasn't. What I learned is, thank God I couldn't do what was in my head, because I think I would have ruined it. It would have sunk from the weight of my pretension. And so in my insecurity and my knowledge that I wasn't Steven Spielberg and how to use a camera, I got very simple. And every scene is shot very simply. And when I say shot simply, I mean from the director's point of view, it's basic coverage. There's very little fancy footwork. Turns out that was the right way to tell a story.
It absolutely is the right way to look. I'll tell you. I mean, there's so many things I could talk about in that movie, but one of my favorite things, the way you guys shot it in that movie, and some of it has to do with how we do things today. But even then, is when Shoeless Joe comes out for the first time that first night or evening or whatever, and then his family comes out and he says, "I want you to introduce my family," and he walks up and he comes to the line, and it's a shot of his foot coming up to the line. And then it cuts to a shot of the family looking down and they look up and then they introduce each other. And there's no explanation.
Right.
I think a couple minutes later,
Amy Madigan says, "Do you want to come in?" He goes, "Thanks, I don't think I can."
I can't. Yeah. That's what it is. Yeah. But you don't have to, because the audience gets from those three shots, the audience totally understands this guy's trapped inside the diamond. And there's so many moments in that movie where everything is told visually and so, I mean, that's what I love about all your films, actually. They're told in such a simple visual way. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's in a wonderful way, because I think what it does is it makes the audience work and think, and it involves them, and then they enjoy it that much more. I mean, but that was a particular one that just blew me away.
I'll tell you a little inside moment, that little shot of his feet at the line where we move in a little bit. That was shot from a Titan crane. It was the piece of equipment we had standing by. And I just want to make a little move.
Basically,
it's an insert on his foot with a Titan crane.
That's cool. Look, you use what you have. I mean, that's right. That's the thing. But the interesting thing, I mean, so you read the book and you wrote it, and I have to say, I haven't read the book, and I need to at some point. Is it vastly different from the book? I mean, I know there's the whole J.D. Salinger part of it that I read about, and
right, that we changed. The biggest change from the book, it's pretty faithful to the spirit of the book. Yeah. And in many cases to the actual letter of the book. The biggest change is in the book on page 2, Shoeless Joe says, the farmer says to Shoeless Joe, "Would you let my dad come play with you?" And Shoeless Joe says, "Sure." So 2/3 of the way through the book, the father shows up, and he's not a surprise to Ray or to the reader.
Oh, okay.
He just shows up. And it's a lovely moment. And I thought, oh man, make that the ending and make it a surprise.
Yeah, you're spoiling the lead there. That's wow. That's completely different. But you know, I'll tell you, the interesting thing to me is I talk to people about this movie, because I mean, I do love sneakers, but I also love this movie. I will tell you unabashedly, I think Almost Famous is probably one of the perfect films ever made. But in fairness to everything else out there, the music gives it a level that nothing else can compare to, because the soundtrack is such a part of the movie. But
it's a great film.
It is a great film. Yeah. And another movie that I put up there is Witness. And then I put up there Field of Dreams and Sneakers. So that's why I'm such a fan of your work, because I think I look at all of these and they're just phenomenal movies. But the thing about Field of Dreams to me, and I mean, Sneakers is in a different way. It's not a baseball movie, right? It's about, obviously it has baseball in it, but to me, it's actually a movie about love, because it's the thing that John and I were talking about this, sort of gets short shift, is like Amy Madigan's character, which now people would say like, oh, why wasn't she a bigger part of the movie or whatever? She's the entire movie, because the movie doesn't happen unless she says, you have to do this.
That's right.
And he has that line where they're sitting looking out of the field, and he says, "I have done something completely illogical," and she says, "That's what I love about it." And it's just like she's the movie, you know.
That was the key to casting this movie, was we had to have an Annie who was strong enough that if she said no, he would not be able to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. No question. I mean, she rules the household there.
Yeah. And she hit that out of the park.
Oh, yeah. There's that. And also, like, there's the moment where after the school meeting, when she's going down the hallway and she's sort of boxing, and she just has this infectious energy, and is such an important part of the movie. But it's about, you know, I mean, to me, it's like, it's about her supporting him through everything, and it's about his, I mean, obviously the love of the game, but just like everybody looking for what they've lost. I mean, it's an amazing movie. I have to ask you about there's so many things I'd love to ask you about to see if there are stories behind, but when the first time they walk into maybe it's not the first time they walk into the corn and they disappear, and one of the guys turns back around and says, I'm melting, and walks back in. Was that a written line, or was that something that they just came up with?
No, that was written. But I'll tell you about the walking into the corn. We have many, many meetings with visual effects houses on how to do that.
I can imagine, right?
Each visual effects house would pitch what their specialty. So some would say there will be laser zaps, the sky will turn orange, and they'll become disembodied, and everybody's pitching all this stuff. And John and I kept thinking, I don't think that's what it would look like if it could really happen. Yeah. And finally, he said, why don't we just do a match dissolve and just make it? And I said, that's what it would look like. They would simply fade out.
Yeah, it works so well. It works. And it's also like the distance that you sort of let them go in as they dissolve, you see them a couple of things deep or whatever. There's something it's just magical. The things you're describing would have been kind of goofy, to be honest. I mean,
I think so too.
Wouldn't have had the same feel to them. You have some huge Burt Lancaster and James Earl Jones. I mean, was it overwhelming working with these people as a young director?
James Earl was easy because he's the loveliest man. Burt was difficult. Burt was tough. He was a tough guy, and in fairness to him, he was getting old and he was not in good health. And I think it was psychologically hard for him to be around all these healthy, strapping crew members who would be out throwing baseball in between shots. And Burt, who had once been an athlete, could no longer do that. And I think he was not in a good mood a lot of the time. And I remember his first night on set, the crew kept calling him Mr. Lancaster, waiting for him to say, no, fellas, call me Burt. And he didn't. And they came up to me and they said, call him Burt, and then we can. I said, I'm not calling him Burt. So our operator, Ken Ferris, figured, Ken Ferris. I've got 800 pounds of metal between me and him. So he said, Burt, could you just move over? And he said, sure. And then everybody's going, hey, Burt, can I get you a cup of coffee, Burt? Then it was fine to call him Burt. But Ken Ferris broke the ice, yeah.
I love that. Another little note that I always loved was when he goes into the feed store and he starts asking, do you ever hear people talking to you out in the things? And of course, everybody's like, oh God, this guy. There's a moment where it goes quiet and the music comes up in the background and it's a song with crazy in it. And it just comes up, the word crazy. There's so many little moments like that I absolutely love. And
it's actually a callback to my first film because that's the Patsy Cline song "Crazy," sung by Beverly D'Angelo, who starred in The Mood.
Oh, the song that's in Field of Dreams is the Beverly D'Angelo version because you can barely hear it. It's a little back there, but that's wonderful. It's such a great moment. Another thing about this movie is the music is it works so perfectly for this movie. Is that? James Horner wasn't James Horner at that time, was he? Was he sort of new on the scene? Or?
He was pretty well established at that point.
Oh, he was. Okay. So was this something that do you show him the movie and just go, what do you think? Or do you have an idea of that? Or
I offered the movie first to Leonard Bernstein to score.
Wow.
And his agent just laughed at us and said, Lenny's booked up for years. Forget it. So I liked James's music, and we arranged to show him a screening with a temp score in it. And I had very intentionally not temped it with movie score music. I temped it with sort of atmospheric, minimalist music, but not from movies. Mm-hmm. And James came in and he was very moved. He cried at the end, and the studio had told us that they hated the temp score. And James said, boy, I love this temp score. I said, yeah, me too. I said, the studio hates it. He goes, I know why they hate it, because it's not like structured. He says, don't worry, I'm going to do this, but in a structured way. And he did just a magnificent job, I thought.
It's such a huge part of that movie. Tell me about the final scene where they pull away and see all the cars. I mean, this is all pre-cell phone, right? I mean, I know there was something with an AM radio and an AM radio station or something like that, but how did you pull that off?
Well, we had a promotion with the town folks, be in the last shot, and you get a free T-shirt or something like that. So all these people, we figured out from an aerial photo that we shot that we needed 500. We needed 2,500 cars.
Oh
we
my
measured
gosh! It's 2,500 cars.
2,500 cars. We measured the distance from the ball field all the way to the little town of Dyersville.
Wow!
And we had an AM radio station broadcasting from inside the house. And John was next to the disc jockey with a walkie-talkie to me in the helicopter.
Oh, you were in the helicopter. Okay.
I was in the helicopter. Right. We had swept the farm that day to get all the accoutrements of filmmaking out of the shot because we were going to see everything. All the vehicles, everything was gone. We had a great helicopter pilot named David Jones. He was this legendary movie helicopter pilot who did Apocalypse Now. And I mean, he was great.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And he and I just went up and he would say, where do you want to be at 10 seconds? Where do you want to be at 15 seconds? And he was just saying, okay, over this tree at this height. Okay. And he just kind of plotted it out by dead reckoning. And he had his own camera operator and assistant in the helicopter. We figured we had time for 3 takes. So the first take we did, John said, let's do it a little bit too early for the perfect light. So we get one under our belt.
Yeah.
We did that. It was pretty good. We come down. We do a second take where the light is going to be perfect. And as we're going up, I realized, boy, because of the first take, all those cars got crunched in to each other. And from a height, it doesn't look like they're moving. It just looks like we strung lights on the road. So we land. And I said to John, on this take, when I give you the cue, have people alternate their regular lights and their bright lights just to give a flickering feeling. Because they were too close to each other.
Yeah.
They weren't moving. After the first line, they were basically stuck out there. So
you're just thinking the light will give it a feeling of motion or something.
Yes. Yeah. Like they're passing picket fences or something.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
That's just a Hail Mary. So we do the third take. And I thought, okay, well, we'll see tomorrow. And we, the next or 2 nights later at Daly's, we look at the first take where it's too bright out and it's good. Second take where the light is perfect. The assistant irised down instead of up. And the shot goes to black.
It was black. Oh,
it was black.
Gosh.
The whole 3-minute
John told
take.
Me about this. Yeah. Oh, wow.
The 3-minute take was black. And we're all sitting at Daly's going, oh my God, I wonder if he did that on the third take. And fortunately he didn't. Because we'd have been hogtied.
That's amazing. So just backing up for a second. So when you said flick the lights on and off, they then went on the AM radio and broadcast to everybody.
Yes.
And so they would be broadcasting like the shot's starting now, do whatever you have to do.
Everybody in those cars were tuned to this local radio station. Mm-hmm. And we're taking instructions from the disc jockey.
That's fantastic. What an amazing story. And it's such a great way to end that movie. I mean, it's just so beautiful. The one thing I wanted to ask you about was, there's a lot of things in this. I always think that the best performances and the best writing and the best shooting and everything, it comes when you go like so close to the line of it not working. You're pushing it to the point. And there's some of the things. James Earl Jones' speech, the little girl's speech of they'll come and they'll want to pay their money and whatever. That if pushed too far could have been completely sort of goofball and whatever. Right. And I wondered, was that something you thought about as you were shooting this?
Every minute of every day. And I actually worried, I didn't worry so much that we were going beyond that because I thought the script got the tone right. And I felt like we were shooting the same tone as the script. My worry was that just my stuff was okay. What I was doing was okay. And it wasn't going to elevate it.
Gotcha.
And, again, in post-production, every day it would get a little better and a little better until finally, actually, when we showed it to James Horner, he was the first virgin to see the movie. He was the first person who came in knowing nothing about the film. And when he cried at the end, he literally left the room. He had to get up and leave the room to cry.
Wow. That tells you everything.
And I thought, wow. yeah, I think we're going to be okay.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. I mean, I could ask you so many things about this, but I want to ask you about sneakers because the sneakers.
Yes.
But I will say that one of the things that I just love about your movies is that there's so much humanity in these stories, and one of those moments in this for me is when Ray is pitching to Shoeless Joe Jackson, and he says. It does the thing where it says, "See if you can hit my my slider or my curveball," I think, or what it is. And it's such a great moment. And then he just smacks it out of the park, and he goes, "Of course." But there's just something so human about it, and that these characters are all imperfect, and it's also great actually. And also one of my other favorite moments is just when I can't think of his name right now. James Earl Jones turns around and he goes, "Oh my God, you're from the '60s! Get out!" And then he comes back in and he says, "It's a gun and show it to me." "No, I won't you. Why won't you show me your gun?" And he picks up, I think, a 9-iron, and he says, "What are you going to do that?" And he says, I'm going to beat you in the head until you go away," or something like that. They're just really, I don't know. They're all very human characters. And actually, the other thing that I'll say that always gets me, and I'm sure everybody has their moments, but there's the moment where Doc says, "No, if I had been a doctor for only 5 minutes, that would have been a tragedy." And I mean, my father's a doctor, so maybe that's why that hits me. But it's such a wonderful reminder of how what's important. I mean, it's just is that a line that you wrote, or is that from the book, or is it?
That's from the book. That's a moment that really, really hit me hard in the book.
Yeah. It's a phenomenal moment, and also, and not to mention that. When he walks back through the players, that is such a wonderful shot because you can sense how the players suddenly respect him on a level that they could never achieve almost. I mean, maybe I'm putting that into it, but it's just a wonderful.
And it's also those young actors acknowledging Burt Lancaster.
There's that too. You're right. Yeah, there is actually. I didn't even think about that because there's old Hollywood right here. This is what we all grew up with, and the one thing that I'll also say that John and I have talked a lot about that's so wonderful is when James Earl Jones goes and he puts his hand into the corn and he laughs, and it's such a wonderful moment. I mean, it's so him, but it's also so this isn't scary. This is exciting, Right.
He said to me, he said, "What happens when I disappear?" And I said, "I think it tickles."
That's
and
great.
So that's why he does that, and
that's great.
He did it just beautifully.
What a phenomenal thing. Well, so sneakers. I have to talk to you about sneakers because
But let me just say one more thing about Field of Dreams. That last sequence.
You could say a lot more things.
From the time that the father shows up. Yeah. That's Magic Hour. We shot probably for a week at Magic Hour to get, we'd get 1 or 2 shots a night for a week.
Yeah.
To put it all together. And that was,
I'm glad you did. Cause it's John's work in that movie is so beautiful. I actually, last time I watched it, I called him up and there's a scene where he and Amy are sitting out on the field at night. And it looks like they're in front of blue screen you didn't do anything with. The sky is so beautifully blue and they're so beautifully lit. And
we did that like a live TV shot. We had 2 cameras set up, one for them sitting on the picnic blanket, and then when they stand up into the second shot.
So you could do it
because we knew we wouldn't have time to do 2 setups. The sky was perfect.
I got you. Oh, that's fantastic. It's a wonderful movie. I'm hoping everybody who's listening to this has seen it, but if not, you should go watch it because it's just spectacular. So Sneakers, I remember seeing this movie and wondering why everybody else wasn't talking about it. I think it came out when Basic Instinct came out. Am I wrong? It was right around that time.
It was 92. Yeah.
That was sort of the movie that was taking over everything. And I was like, this is this movie. And this is on pre-IMDb. So of course I saw your name, but I didn't connect to Field of Dreams or whatever. It is such a spectacular movie. And again, by the way, to me in different ways, it's actually a movie about the love between all of these people and how they support each other again.
Yeah. It's a family.
And it is a family. And even when Cosmo at the end has the gun on him and he's saying, please stay. And you can see in his voice, he wants that relationship, but it's not there. It's so beautiful.
The whole movie is about Cosmo trying to get his friend back.
It's exactly, and you don't realize it till that moment, and that's the beauty
Right.
of Ben Kingsley, right? There aren't a lot of people who could pull that off in a moment like that. So,
Great.
first of all, I mean, it's a great script. Obviously, did you write this based on something, or is this just something you came up with?
No, I wrote it with two other guys, Walter Parks and Larry Lasker, who had written war games, and in the process of researching war games, they came across the existence of sneakers. These people who test security by breaking in.
Gotcha.
And they hired me to write it. We worked for almost a year to come up with the story. Didn't finish it. I had to go off and do all of me. So they said, well, we'll write a first draft. You come back and rewrite it. I came back. They had written like half of the first draft. Mm-hmm. And so we then spent the next 7 or 8 years working on the script. Took us a long time.
It's incredible, and every time I see it, I can't fathom how you figured out all the pieces of this, because it's so complex, and how everything fits into each other, and just how each of the characters is. I mean, it's just, and one of the things right from the beginning of the movie that just blows me away is how you instantly and very quickly set up these relationships that carry throughout. It's just of course, I'm going to blank on everybody's names, but Sidney Poitier's character is
Kreese.
Kreese. How Kreese and Mother, from the minute that you see them, they're talking. He's feeding him I don't know, animal mutilation stories or whatever, and he's like, I'm not talking about this anymore. And just how everybody's character is so set up. And the one that blows me away every single time, and it happens every single time, is when Mary McDonnell comes in and you go in and she's giving the piano lesson. It's like, first of all, I don't know how it's possible, but like you instantly fall in love with this woman because she has such a presence. I've worked with her, and she's just a wonderful person.
Sure is.
But she is. But and that whole sequence is so incredible because it's just she drives the bus in the entire shot, and he's just basically trying to keep up with her, and it sets up that relationship. Yeah, I mean, the other thing I was talking about, things the ways that you shoot things. Early on, before she comes in and they're walking away, and he says, I'm gonna call Liz, and they all stop and turn and look at him. In that moment, you realize everything that had gone on previously before them. It's a really incredible way to introduce these ideas.
What cracks me up about that shot every time is that they stop, they turn to look at him, and even the blind guy turns to look at him.
That's exactly right. It's exactly right. He's fantastic, but no,
he's like
it's
a
just
beat behind the others, but it's really funny to me.
It's great, but there's so many devices like that are so great. Like when the two, you think they're FBI or whatever, or NSA, and then you find out there's someone else, obviously. When River Phoenix comes up and says, there are two guys here to see you, and he says, what shoes? And he says, yeah, they're really nice. And it's just like, again, it establishes that they have this whole thing. So how did you put together a cast like this? I mean,
good question. We had, in the 10 years or so that we were writing the script, Bishop was always our age, Walter and Larry and mine. Okay. So by the time we finished the script, Bishop was 40. And I ran into one of Redford's agents who told me, Bob, we're working really hard to get Bob in your movie. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, Redford in sneakers. I said, for what role? He said, the lead. I said, no. He's my age. He's not. I said, do me a favor. Don't send it to him, because I don't want to hurt his feelings and then turn him down if he's interested in. And he says, no, he's already read it. He wants to do it. And I thought, oh my God, what do I do? And I went home. This is how stupid I am. I thought, this is a problem. I went home and I reread the script, picturing Redford in the role, and it was the best version of the movie I'd ever imagined. Having him just a few years older was so much better.
I can't imagine anyone else playing that part. I mean, he's so, actually, I would say for every single one of them, they so embody those characters. Yeah. And then is it one of those things where when you get Redford on, other people fall in line? Pretty
much. I knew Sidney a little bit, and I sent it to him, and he said, I love this. And I knew Danny a little bit, and he said, I want to do this. And the studio said, you need a name, young person. They gave us a list of 3 or 4, young stars. They said, because you've got all these older guys, we need somebody that young people. Sure. And River was our first choice of that list. And he was great. it really got a lot easier once Bob was attached. Everybody wants to be in a Redford film.
Sure. Yeah, but it's just, I mean, every single person in this movie is cast so perfectly. And then there's also, there's the intros and the characters in the movies, but then when the NSA guys come in, you do that thing where there are people in the back office and the NSA guys are there and Redford's they're talking about the people in his group, and you sort of go to each one, and it's just so wonderful the way it just happens so seamlessly. It feels like,
that's part of the fun, is designing that sort of thing that John and I could sit down and figure out, for this one, let's pan him. This one, let's just cut to him or let's rack focus behind one of these guys in the foreground. It's fun designing that stuff. Was that
ahead of time you figured that out, or on the day?
Oh God, yes, yeah.
Yeah, ahead of time. Well, and the other thing that happens in this movie, quite more than I thought actually, is and that's a good thing. There are all these single shots where people are coming into the frame and walking out of the frame, and I mean, to me the pinnacle is the one, the sort of good cop bad cop, when he goes back to see the NSA, and he actually walks around behind the camera, and the papers come down in the foreground. I actually have it on a page that I have devoted to blocking that I think I sent to you, because it is such a wonderful example of blocking a scene.
Oh,
and
thanks.
Was that something that you had worked out that ahead of time? Because that seems so specific to
that scene is about Redford being trapped. He walks into that office thinking, I can just dance around these guys, and they keep cutting him off. So I thought the blocking of the scene should reflect that. It should be choreographed in that way. And then I thought, it might be fun to do this all in one. And there's like a subtext reason for that, which is early in the movie, when they break into the bank guard is watching on a small TV a scene from Touch of Evil, in which Charlton Heston says, I looked in that box. The box was empty. Now, I chose that because it's a harbinger of the end of our movie, where Cosmo looks in the box and the box is empty. But that scene from Touch of Evil was a famous one-take shot that took up 6 pages.
Of course.
And it's a great shot. And I thought, it would be fun for us to do something like that. So John and I figured out how to do this, choreographing where people are coming in and out of frame, and a logic to it, and ends with him trapped between them. And I wish we'd had a behind-the-scenes crew to film the dance of the lights and the flags and the sound, everything moving in sync with that. And the next night was the first time that Redford came to Daly's, and John said, oh God, the first time he comes to Daly's, he's going to see the scene that I couldn't really light
the way you wanted to, of course. Yeah. Classic DP. And what Redford was impressed with it?
He liked it. Yeah. He liked it.
So wait, let me just understand this. So you had figued out the blocking, but then you didn't decide it was going to be a oneer until that day, or you decided it was going to be a oneer ahead of time?
We decided that well ahead of time.
Ahead of time.
Because we had to figure out. Yeah, I had to figure out blocking that not only made sense for the actors, but also is something we could actually shoot.
Yeah. Do you find that when you do things like that, the actors get on board and get excited about it and sort of end up revving it up?
Yeah, it's fun. And I mean, everybody does. And, John said something very interesting to me once. He said, I love going to Daly's because I get to see a shot unfold in its entirety.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. It's a wonderful sequence. And the great thing about it that I love is, you don't realize that it's one take, almost until you start to think about it again, because all the coverage is there. And like you said, they trap him at the end, and they sit down on either side of him, and then they each put their hand down on the desk. It's like this sort of final, coda to the fact that he's trapped. It's absolutely wonderful. The other thing that I really like, by the way, is the cuts when they're all dancing with Mary McDonnell. It's just one after the other, and you see everybody's different styles. And the whole thing with the hearing that's involved and how they recreate. I mean, that's when I watch it, I just don't even understand how you can come up with the idea that you'll recreate the sound of a road, and that'll take you somewhere. And then you get to what is it, ducks or geese? I think
geese.
And he says it's a cocktail party. Like, I mean, where did that come from?
Well, when we were writing, we were trying to figure that out. And Larry, one of the three of us, said, I know. He says it sounds like a cocktail party, and it turns out it's a pond full of geese. And Walter and I both laughed. We said, that's a great idea. He says, where'd you come up with that? And he said, years ago when I was a kid, there was some obscure radio drama that I heard that had that. I said, well, we can't use that. He said, don't worry about it. It's an obscure radio drama. Okay,
yeah.
fine. So at the premiere, I see Larry talking to a woman, and he waves me over and he says, tell her what you just told me. And she says, thank you for the homage to my grandfather. And I said, what are you talking about? She said, well, her grandfather's Philip Dunn, the famous screenwriter. Yeah. He had written that scene in a radio drama and then a movie that was actually made.
Wow.
So
that's fantastic.
So we now call it the homage to Philip Dunn.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I wanted to go back to, because one of the things I was saying about Field of Dreams that I love about your movies is the humanity in it. And there's so many moments in this. I mean, like early on when they go into the bank, at the beginning, when you think that they're robbing it, but they're not really robbing in the whole thing. And Robert Redford goes and jumps over the counter and takes a tumble and falls down and says, I can't do that anymore. It's just like, again, there are so many moments of like that are just like the extra spice that's on this story and tells you about these people. It's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. Thanks. But I was going to say, you referenced the dancing scene. We were shooting in the loft. We were shooting that party scene for 3 or 4 days. And John and I would drive in together, which I found to be incredibly helpful. We did that on In the Mood also, that we would drive to work together. We'd be able to talk about the day's work. We drive home. We get to kind of, decompress. And I said to him, we're shooting this party scene. There's no party. There's just dialogue of people talking to each other. There's no party.
Absolutely.
We need to have a party. So he said, what do you want to do? I said, why don't we have them dance? And we got to the set and he said, show me where you want them to dance. Because I said, let's do a lock off and we'll just jump cut them. He said, I'm going to light this area here. You can have them, this far left to right, this far deep with deep background. He had to light the whole set for this. And he just gave me an area. And we didn't tell the cast because I didn't want them thinking about it. And when they showed up, I just said to them, you're going to do a quick dance thing. And the prop guys had some, all prop guys have CDs and audio cassettes. And they showed me a whole bunch. I said, oh, Chain of Fools. Let's do Chain of Fools. That's the Sneakers.
Yeah.
And they each got to dance without thinking about it. Sidney used the dance steps that he did in To Sir with Love.
Oh, it's so great.
Aykroyd is a dancer. He loves that. Strathern, playing the blind guy, danced like someone who's never seen dancing before. It was brilliant what he did.
Yeah, that's right. That is what he's doing.
And River did this sort of punk freak out dance.
Crazy.
It was just fantastic.
The great thing about the River one is you can tell she's just giving some space because she's like, I don't want to get too close because I don't know what's going to happen here. It's so, again, there's so many things in this. And actually, the other thing I mentioned to John was I love the fact that when Robert Redford is putting the thing down into the, the final room that he has to go into, he has the pocket fisherman out.
Yeah,
just
the
cracks.
pocket fisherman.
Yeah, there's so many things in Field of Dreams and this where I find I laugh out loud just because like there's such great things that are happening on. Now, where did you guys come up with the idea for the 98.6 and walking through the heat? I mean, it's such a great device.
Yeah, we had done research on sensors, and some sensors are about motion, which you can defeat by moving very slowly, and some are room temperature, and we had a whole bunch of them. Some are like sonar. So we did a huge amount of research when we were writing. It's one of the reasons it took 10 years.
It's fantastic. And actually, it makes me think of that moment where you think they're getting away with it. And she says, that's the last time I'm doing computer dating. And of course he goes, wait, a computer put the two of you together, which is so brilliant and so exactly what he would think, right? I agree.
That was Walter Parks came up with that. I remember the day he did, because we couldn't figure out how she gets caught.
Yeah.
We were, and Walter said, I know.
Yeah. Well, and the beauty of it is it's not a clumsy way. It's like, she would never think that someone would catch on to what that is, but this guy's on a different plane, right?
Exactly.
It's amazing. The end of the movie to me is one of the most satisfying ends of the movie ends of a movie ever. And the irony is, and it's two ends, because there's the moment where they all say what they want, which is so fantastic. And whoever came up with the line, you're telling me you can have anything in the world and all you want is my phone number. It's just absolutely brilliant. And James Earl Jones saying, or what's it, Redford saying, you can there could be lunch, you can chaperone. I mean, just the whole sequence is great. And Mary McDonnell saying, no, I'm fine, whatever. And Redford giving her that look. I mean, just everything about it. When Redford takes River Phoenix aside and he goes, this is the brass ring. You can have anything you want. And he's like, I only want her phone number. It's just, it's just everything. And what is it? I can't think of the make of it. The motorhome with the
Winnebago.
The burgundy interior, the Winnebago with the burgundy interior, just everything. And they're telling about Tahiti. I mean, just all of that is great. But then the final coup d'etat of just like, the TV and all the money going to all the different organizations. Was that something? I mean, was that the original ending?
That came about
or were
in
there
post-production.
two endings? Yeah.
With the original ending that we shot after the scene of the sneakers asking for everything they wanted, and they've kept the chip. We shot a scene of them at the end of a pier in San Francisco, tossing the chip into the water, and then walking off, sadder but wiser. And it was a beautiful shot. It was done at sundown. It was gorgeous. And when we showed the film to the studio, we realized what a boring ending. And the studio even said, the film works really well, but the ending isn't quite right. And
especially after that scene, such a great scene where they're all asking for everything. Yeah.
It was a letdown. And I went back to the editing room with Tom Rolfe, who was a great editor. And I said to him, I wish we had an ending that you cared about. We don't care that they throw it away. And he said, I wish we had an ending where we could see them using it. And we went back to work. And about 10 minutes later, I said, just as a joke, I said, the Republican Party announced it's bankrupt, but the United Negro College Fund got record donations. And we laughed and went back to work. And about 10 minutes after that, we looked at each other and said, that's not bad. And I called the TV station I worked at in Schenectady, New York. And I spoke to the anchorman, who was a longtime friend. And I said, if I faxed you some copy, could you, after the 11 o'clock news tonight, just do a medium shot of saying this?
Oh, this is so great.
I gave him I faxed him the copy. I gave him my FedEx number. I said, just send me a 3/4 inch. And I told the studio we're going to reshoot the ending. And they said, oh my God, what's this going to cost? Thinking, $800,000. For about $35, we reshot the ending of the film.
Oh, this is this makes it even better. It's so great. It's so great because it's hard to say this, but that's how that movie should end, right? I mean, it just is.
Yeah,
it's exactly the right thing. It's again, it gives you so much information in such an interesting way without like spoon feeding you everything that you feel in everything else. It's just so wonderful. The other thing I was thinking of. The sequence where Redford is trying to get up to the office originally, and the whole thing with the birthday cake and the and the balloons is just inspired. The whole movie. Is there part of the movie that did not work the way that you thought it was going to work originally? Is there something that was different than you?
That's a great question. It's very hard for me to remember now because we worked so long getting it to where we wanted. We were really, all the doubts and fears that I had on Field of Dreams, I was much better on Sneakers. I was emotionally happier on Sneakers. Part of it was I was sleeping in my own bed. We were shooting it mostly locally. But also I had learned from that last film, don't worry, if something isn't perfect on the set, you can fix it.
Yeah.
And so I didn't go through it with the same angst. And again, in the cutting room, every day it got better. I'm trying to think if there was anything that nothing jumps to mind.
It's also a while ago, and the movies, in your mind. As far as working with a cast like that, and this may be a silly question, but I've never worked on anything with a cast that's that talented across the board. Mm. And I mean, did they just come in and kind of knock it out of the park, and then you just finesse it? Or I mean, it seems like they would, but is there a lot of redirecting that goes on?
There wasn't a lot. The part of it is that the roles were written very specifically, and I think people had a very clear idea of who they were playing.
They must have.
And these were pros. I mean, it was just a delight to see them. There's a scene at night in in Cosmo's office, Ben Kingsley's office, where he gets on the phone, which is like a loudspeaker in the building, and he's talking to Martin. And it was late, but John and I were just like kids in a candy store because we got all these different angles on Ben. But John said to me, "You can put a light anywhere on this guy, and he looks great."
Yeah, it does.
And so we had a shot of his nose, we had a shot of his mouth, his ears, and camera over his head. And I just said to Ben, say it like you're talking in the mirror, rehearsing what you're going to say. And he had a ball doing that and just changing his inflections and changing the delivery. And it was really fun. And pretty much everybody in the cast was a lot of fun to work with. We had a good time. There was nobody who showed up and your heart would sink. You know how that often happens on a movie where you go, "Oh, that one."
Yeah.
We didn't have that on this.
And watching it just seems like everybody's having a good time. I mean, that can be deceiving, but it's nice to hear that. And actually, it's funny you mentioned that because when the guy's about to shoot Marty in the in the rooftop, the ceiling, and it cuts to Ben Kingsley. It's just that shot across his mouth and the bottom of the phone. And there's clearly like a blue video monitor, like in the background. John did such beautiful work on that movie. It's really incredible. There's that great shot. Oh, go ahead.
We had a little mantra between us at the beginning of the movie where we were talking about what it would look like. And I said, I think it's a shiny movie, and it doesn't necessarily mean shiny surfaces, but I just think it's got a glint to it. And he said, I also have a thought. I said, what's that? He said, no bad shots. And I said, yes. Because you know how in every movie, there's always a scene where you've shot yourself into a corner and you go, there's nothing but putting him against the wall and there's no practical light and you get a bad shot. We promised ourselves no bad shots.
Yeah. Well, and the one that always gets me is there's that great shot of Mother with the glasses on and the computer's reflecting in it as he's doing the Braille thing down the bottom.
A Whistler. Yeah.
A Whistler. I'm sorry, not Mother. Right. Yes. It's an incredible, the whole movie.
There was one night when we painted ourselves into a corner and there was nothing but a bad shot looking back at us. And we wrestled it to the ground. It's in Mary's apartment. He's showing her the little talking dog or the voice controlled dog, and it was an ugly apartment, and there was nothing to do, and John said to me, he says, I think we're going to have our first bad shot. And I said, is there anything we can do? Practical lights or something. And I forget which one of us came up with the idea of a light table. What if the table was a light table? And I remember John turning to the grips and saying, build a light table. And in half an hour, we had a new piece of furniture in there. Wow. That the electricians had the right bulbs for it, and they built this table. And so we had this light coming up from the table. And we were so happy that night.
That's great. Oh, that's great. Yeah, because there isn't a bad shot in that movie. There's some, I could go on and on. It's just, another scene that I love is when Bishop is in trying to steal the thing originally, and the woman who the guy's having an affair with comes in, and he gets caught, and they're talking over, they're putting in his ear of what he should say. And at one point he says, because you need to stand by him. Like he's getting it all wrong. I mean, it's just so funny. And
he
the
did
point
that
where
really well.
Oh, they did that so well. And he's kind of listening. We know he's listening, but she can't tell. And then they say, I don't have anything here. And he's got to make something up on the spot. It's just all so wonderful. Anybody who hasn't seen Sneakers, you should go out and see Sneakers right now. It's a fantastic movie. And I was so happy because for a while you couldn't find it anywhere for some reason. And then it sort of started showing up. I don't know why. Maybe there was a licensing thing. So you went from this to Sum of All Fears,
yeah.
which is just a completely different animal. And I'm assuming a massive, massive film.
Massive.
Yeah.
Nothing I had done prepared me for that.
What was the mental game like with that?
The mental game on that was an interesting one because I hadn't written the script. I did some work on the script. There were two of us who sort of made some changes towards the end. But I wasn't approaching this as I wrote it. And so my directing is about protecting what I wrote. On this one, I said to myself, okay, you're the director. Use those chops. Be the director. Don't be the writer protecting his work. And so I was looking at it from a different angle. And John and I had long talks again about what we wanted to look like. And the most important discussion was about, I said to him, when the bomb goes off, I believe that the world changes. When a bomb goes off, when an A bomb goes off, it's a different world the next moment.
Yeah.
And so I think that we should change the look of I think the world should look different at that point. And he said, what did you have in mind? And I said, I think the air looks different, which was a little private joke between us, because I would often say to him while waiting for actors to come back from makeup, I said, why can't we just light the set without them? And he would always say, you can't light the air. So I said to him, I think the air looks different. And he took it as a challenge. He said, okay, let me think about it. Let me work on that. And he came back sometime later and he said, I have an idea, bleach bypass.
Yep.
And I didn't know what that meant. You do, obviously, but for those who don't, it's when you're processing film, you have to, at one point, you have to run it through the bleach to get the excess halide crystals off. And it's something that Roger Deakins shot an entire film in 1984. He shot the entire film, bleach bypass. Mm-hmm. And John said, it looks different. It's desaturated. It's a little more contrasty. It's hard to describe, but it's also hard to predict. So he said, I'll do some tests. And he did tests, day interior, day exterior, night interior, night exterior, doing it to the negative and doing it to the print. So there were, eight different shots. No question that doing it to the negative looked better. And I said, let's do that. He said, okay, here's the problem. You can't predict what it's going to look like, and it's the negative. So if we shoot a scene with bleach bypass and they do it and you don't like how it looks, you can't change it.
That's it. Yeah.
And I said, you know what? Let's roll the dice. He said, whose permission do we have to ask? I said, we're not asking permission. Nobody in their right mind would give us permission to do this. So when the bomb goes off, those scenes that followed it, we shot bleach bypass, and they looked fantastic.
Absolutely.
And one day, the lab had to reprint something. And when they have to reprint something, they have to send a report to the studio. And they sent a report to the studio that said, we're reprinting the bleach bypass shot. And the head of post-production went nuts. And he called Mace Neufeld, the producer. We're in Montreal. Calls him up, screaming at him. And Mace says, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. Talk to John. So John gets on the phone with this guy. And the guy's screaming at him, can I use the F word on our little podcast here?
Sure you can.
The guy at the studio says, you're fucking with my negative. And John said very calmly, sir, everything I do is fucking with your negative. He said, that's my job.
That is such a John Lindley line. It's perfect. Wow. He's never shared that story with me. And was that the end of it?
That was the end of those discussions. And we finished all those extra sequences with bleach bypass, and it looks great. And of course, years later, when the studio did this sort of super high def transfer of the film, the computer cleaned all that up, and we had to manually put it back.
Gotta be kidding me. Oh God, it's such a crazy business. Wow. So you didn't write this at all? This was someone else's script entirely? Or did you?
I did some writing on it. I wrote some of the scenes, but it was Paul Adanasio and Dan Pine wrote the script.
So it sounds like it is, but I just have to ask it. Is it freeing then to be in that situation after like you said, you were in before, where everything is protecting the writing, and
very
yes,
much.
You're sort of going,
very much. I really did feel free, which was great because there were big toys to play with here. And if I'd been trying to sort of micromanage things that I had in my head from the script, it would have been much more difficult. I really enjoyed the process. I had a lot of fun in that movie.
Was it? I mean, I'm assuming this is in sort of the parlance of what we use, a big studio picture versus the other things that you'd done before. Yeah.
Right. So Sneakers was for Universal, so that we'd working for a big studio on that. But this was a much bigger movie.
Yeah, and I mean, this is also sort of a tentpole, I'm assuming, because they're trying to launch something. So, are there a lot of people sort of like looking over your shoulder on that, or more so than the others?
It's hard to ever know because we would do things. Sometimes we do things in dailies and not hear from anybody. So I never really knew how many people were watching. On the Field of Dreams, uh, uh, um, Doc, who was our B camera operator, Larry
Doc
Carmen.
Yeah.
We said to him, "Hey, there's great clouds in Iowa. Anytime you see a really good looking cloud, grab the B camera and just roll some footage off on it." Well, there were some nights where we had 45 minutes of clouds because Doc would just take that and run with it. No one at the studio ever called and said, "What's all this cloud stuff?" One night in Sneakers, the shot of the Scrabble letters when they're playing Scrabble, we did one that spelled out "studio executives suck" or something like that. No one ever called us. So I don't know how much people are paying attention. I assume they're looking at your budget and your schedule. Are you on schedule? They're just assuming that the footage is okay. I guess. I don't really know.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. I have to. I mean, there's so much great stuff in Some of All Fears. I have to ask you that I asked you with Sneakers. When you were there surprises in that movie? Were there the scenes that didn't work the way that you thought that you would, or you had to change, and on the spot? Good question. It sounds like you're very heavily into pre-production, so it sounds like you probably pre-think most of these. Which
I'll
is
tell
smart.
you one thing that did change, maybe on the day, if not, or almost on the day. The very opening of the film, it's a shot of a missile with a nuclear warhead being wheeled through a hangar, and it goes outside the hangar and is loaded onto an Israeli jet.
Yep.
And we went to a decommissioned Air Force base in California to shoot this. And we saw on the Tech Scout, I mean, we were ready to shoot the scene, but this is just before we were going to shoot. We saw they had at the back of the hangar, kind of this long tunnel. And we thought, it might be kind of cool to have it emerge from this tunnel. And so we decided, let's put the camera on the missile so that we're moving with this missile. It emerges from this dark tunnel into the hangar. The AD had lots of people and stuff walking through the hangar. We said, get rid of all the people. Let's make this an inhuman moment. And we had the doors of the hangar closed. So this missile moves through the hangar and we're on the back of it. And then the doors open and we get outside. And at that point, the camera operator gets off the back of the missile. And the missile keeps going and he moves around. It was a very beautifully designed shot. That really came out of the location. The location sort of told us how to do it. There were opportunities there that we took advantage of.
That's and that's what it is, right? Is sort of being willing to throw something out that you've had in your head when you see something better, exactly. Or having your eyes open enough to be able to actually recognize that. Right. That's great. One of the things I was going to say, because I've mentioned the humanity and all this, I love the sequence in the plane when Ben Affleck's trying to explain to his girlfriend that he's not going to be there and he feels like he can't tell him. And Morgan Freeman goes, no, tell her why you're there. Tell her you're working with the CIA. And then he just sort of smiles as she says the exact same thing that he knows she will. There are great moments in that movie. Tell me about Freedom Song. What was the situation with that? It's a wonderful movie.
Oh, thank you. After Field of Dreams, I took a year off and I was determined I wasn't going to work. I wanted to sort of think about life and I was going to read books that could not be made into movies. And I read this wonderful book called Parting the Waters by Taylor Branch, which was a big book about the civil rights movement. And in that book, scattered throughout the book, were stories of this group called the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, that was working in Mississippi in the 60s. And I got obsessed with that and reached out to some of the veterans of SNCC and told them I wanted to do a movie about them. And I spent years going to Mississippi and meeting with people and sort of learning the story and figuring it out. And we couldn't set it up as a feature. I wrote it at Universal as a feature, and they decided it was too small for them. And TNT wanted to do it as a TV movie. And so we were able to, and I was very grateful to them for that. And got Danny Glover involved, and I was very grateful to everybody for helping get that made because to me it was a very important story.
It is. It's something I knew nothing about, and I saw it, and I was just like, it's unfortunately it's very hard to get a good quality copy of it, but it's a really phenomenal story and a well told story. that I didn't know about. So that answers my question, because I was like, so it sounds like you had their blessing and their involvement to shoot this
very
story.
much. Very much so. Yeah. It's a true story.
Yeah.
We've changed names, but it's those events actually happened. And
okay.
Many of the people who are depicted in that story were our sort of technical advisors and friends of the court, and would come visit us. And I stayed in touch with many of them. For me, it satisfied something that I'd always wanted to do, which was get a film made that wouldn't otherwise get made. Whatever clout I had from the commercial successes, I wanted to do something that needed that clout to get made. And this, to me, was one of the most important stories to tell.
Well, that's wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it obviously says something about you that you wanted to, because a lot of people, I think, would have just gone on the the big blockbuster chain after Sum of All Fears. I'm sure that was probably a potential, wasn't it?
It was a potential, but I'd long before decided I didn't want to be on that train. I promised myself I was never going to take a job just for the sake of taking a job. That I wanted these things. That year off that I took after Field of Dreams was really about figuring out, do I want to put myself through this angst again? And I didn't know. I didn't really know that I wanted to direct again. And if I wasn't going to direct, I wasn't sure I wanted to write, because I didn't want someone else to direct what I wrote. At the end of the year of contemplating and musing, I decided, okay, if the movie has the potential for being something that I'll be really deeply personally proud of and connected to, then it's worth it. It's worth it going through all that.
Yeah.
Anything less than that is not. So for me to say yes to something, it has to be something that has the potential of moving me and being meaningful to me.
That's impressive. I mean, you're an honorable man in a field that's not necessarily filled with such people. I think
I'm not as wealthy as I could have been. my business manager wishes I wasn't quite so honorable. But,
sure, but you're true to yourself, which is impressive. Where did you shoot that Freedom Song?
We shot that in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Wilmington, North Carolina. Yeah,
because there's as you know, there's a production base there, and there's crews there, and.
Sure. And both John and Amy Vincent are listed as cinematographers on that.
Yeah, Amy, who had been an assistant on Sneakers, was the DP. John came and shot some second unit. Henry Klein, who was the operator on Sum of All Fears and was the assistant on Sneakers, was the operator on that. Yeah. So there was real comfort in having, family.
That's great. Yeah. And Amy's so talented. I mean, she just did, Sung Blue, which is so beautiful, and she's done really well. And Henry's done amazing work as well. It seems like you have this little group of people that you've worked with over and over again, which must be wonderful.
It is wonderful, and it's also it's part of my own insecurity of wanting familiar faces around who know me, but also who I know can kind of prop me up and keep me going and keep me from making terrible mistakes.
So, are there other stories out there that you want to tell? Are there things in the works
yes.
for potentially?
Yes. I have a bunch of scripts that I've never been able to get made that I still harbor dreams of getting made. I'm working on a couple of things now that I hope will in the next year get made.
That's wonderful.
Hope springs eternal. Yeah.
Yeah, because this is potentially on some level about operating. I should ask you: do you have any specific interactions with operators that you remember from any of your movies where they came up with something you weren't aware of, or pointed out something that made the scene better? Because I often find that I'm 2 feet from the actors, and I can see their hands fidgeting, and I can see this and that and the other. I can hear them talking in between scenes. That I'm sometimes privy to things that directors are not, and will sometimes pass that along. I'm just wondering. I like to ask people if they have any moments like that.
I do. I would begin by saying I don't sit at Video Village. I stand next to the camera.
Oh, God, that makes me so happy.
But it's like
so
that's
wonderful.
how old school I am. I hate Video Village. I hate the fact that there's a bunch of people with headphones sitting looking at monitors judging us all.
You're making me so happy right now. That's so fantastic.
I want to be able to lean over and whisper to the operator, and see those things. But I can't count the number of times an operator has seen something through the lens that I've missed, or has a suggestion of, do you want me to come over a little bit more this way? I remember on Field of Dreams, we would often say to Doc, especially in the outdoor scenes, take the B camera, find a shot. And he would always find an angle that would never occur to us to use. That was always useful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a good
fantastic.
operator is just a spectacular tool, and I think that it's Video Village. I think has really hurt filmmaking because of that. Because everybody thinks they're looking at the monitor and they get to judge what you need, what works, what doesn't work. I have a theory, and tell me what you think about this.
Yeah.
If you're looking at a monitor, you're sitting in front of a monitor. That monitor takes up maybe 20% of your total vision. You've got peripheral vision around. You're seeing around the monitor. So the image of the shot is about 20% of what you're seeing. If your eye is to the eyepiece, it's 100%.
Yep.
And I think you can see much better without all that other distraction if you're looking through the eyepiece.
Well, there's no question. I mean, my thing has always been that when I'm in the eyepiece, I'm in the theater, like with the lights off, and I'm looking at the screen. It's the same thing. Yeah. There's no question about that. That's great. I love that.
I would often ask Henry, "What do you think?" You know, and he would say, "I think I should be over a little bit more this way." You know, and I like that kind of, it keeps everybody in the game. It makes me look better because I'm going to get credit for the composition. It's better for the movie. It just makes the day go by better. It's like, I love it. And I remember John, I learned that actually on the first film that John and I did. He was off lighting a shot. And I said to him, I got to say, I really love the fact that you're the operator and the DP. And he said, yeah, but I should be rehearsing the shot right now. And I'm not.
Yep. Yeah.
And I thought,
there are two complete jobs is what it comes down to. And so there's no way that one person could do. There's no way that one person could do. And as I said, and the other thing is by sitting on the camera, I establish a rapport with the actors that the DP will never be able to, because they're off doing, they're off lighting. Yeah. And that's so unbelievably important.
The number of times during the day when an actor is going to say to you, Dave, do you get my hands in this? Dave, do you see my feet? Dave, how much are you cutting off? That's a real relationship. And you're the last person on the set that they're going to piss off.
The smart ones, anyway. There's one or two or actors that don't feel that way, but for the most part, that's absolutely correct. And it's funny because it's someone asked me a while ago what the job of an operator was, and I was like, look, I can give you the panning and tilting and the framing and this and that and the other, but at the end of the day, I actually think my job is actually to protect. And you're protecting the DP, you're protecting the director, you're protecting the actors. Right. Absolutely. You're protecting the assistant. I mean, you're constantly sort of looking out for all these different things. Right. And I think that's a big part of it. And the actors, I personally take that very seriously, that I'm somewhat their advocate for what they need to do what they have to do, which, sometimes you would realize it standing next to the camera, but someone by Video Village, doesn't understand that there's a big table in front of them or whatever it is,
Right.
So yeah, the whole thing is quite fascinating.
And I remember at the beginning of Sneakers, Doc talking about, I'd like to frame singles pretty close to the edge. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. So he had this idea and we stuck to it. And the film has a certain kind of a look because of the operator's instinct about how to frame a certain kind of shot.
I love that. And I love the fact that you were open to listening to it and saying, let's go down this road and see what happens.
He knows more than I do about that. So I'm happy to. One other thing I would say, I got to work with John Bailey late in his career. He was a wonderful man, a wonderful cinematographer. And he told me, when we first started talking about the film, he said, tell me about the film. Tell me about what you're thinking. And I thought he was doing that to get a sense of how we're going to shoot it. He was, but he was also doing it because he casts the operator. He would cast a different operator for a different kind of movie.
Oh, that's
and he
wonderful.
said, I want to know what you're thinking of. And he said, I think for this thing, given what you said, I think Ben Speck should shoot this, should be the operator. Because, some films are delicate, some are rough around the edges, some are meticulous, some you have to sort of go with the flow, some are rock and roll, and
Yeah.
some are chamber music. He cast
That's wonderful.
the camera operator. And I thought, that's brilliant.
No, that's amazing. And he's absolutely right. And I would say it's not only the material, but it's also like who's in the cast, who are they and who are they going to need? No, I love that. Oh, that's so phenomenal. What a great thing to share. I wish everybody would do that.
Yeah.
Although maybe I wouldn't get as many jobs. Yeah. Well, listen, this has been really, really wonderful. I could go on Sneakers alone for hours with you, but everybody would be bored. But maybe I'll call you up and pepper you with questions some other time.
Okay.
But I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did, because this was an absolute treat. And
very much.
So great to have you on the podcast. I will leave you with the question that I leave everybody with, and you can take us out with it. Advice for someone getting in the business now on how to succeed, and or maybe just something you have learned along the way that you wish you knew sooner than you learned it.
The advice, I think, is know why you're doing this. Know what you want to do it for. And open yourself up to everything you can in the world. Read great books, go see great movies, listen to great music, go to the museum and see great art. You'll learn tons from those things that will impact your work and will come through the work. And also it will inspire you to have a purpose, because great art always does. And I think that if you know yourself really well and you know the world really well and you know why you're doing this, that's, to me, the formula for making great movies, not technical skill so much.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. We'll be back soon with another great episode. Don't forget to check us out on theop.io for all sorts of information on operating and storytelling. So thanks for listening and have a great day.